In this video, I'm going to show you the exact step-by-step process that our marketing agency uses to audit our clients' websites. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to audit your own website or your clients' websites exactly like a professional agency would. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Before you start auditing a website, you're going to need a few things. And the very first thing is the understanding and the true purpose of why we do the SEO audit. If you come at this from the wrong angle or the wrong mindset, this SEO audit might as well just be useless for your SEO campaign. True reason of the SEO audit is that it's the very first step of the SEO campaign, and it's used to diagnose all the issues, of course, as it sounds, audit, so that way you can clean up everything now so you don't have to worry about it later, and then you can build on a clean foundation. It's the same thing like anything in real life, right? When you go to the doctor and you're sick, they should do some sort of diagnosis first, blood work, scan. They shouldn't just rush to the treatment. Same thing if you go to a coach, a fitness coach, or anything, they should diagnose, see what's going on first. Then they go ahead and give you the plan. Anything outside of that, you're just guessing, and you don't want to guess. Another thing is, of course, if you built out the site without a proper audit, if you skimped out the audit, whether it's for yourself or a client, and then 6 months later you find out it's not really bringing any traffic or something's not working, you're going to have to do an audit at that point again. Now you have to go ahead and go back and clean up all the errors. But now that, because you've built up on top of it, now there's even more work to do. So now it's 2 steps forward, 10 steps back. Not worth it. Do the audit first, clean up everything first, then build on top of it. Okay. And this goes for even websites you've worked on before. If on a client's or yours, if it's been some time and you're about to do a new campaign, always start with the audit. Second thing is the SEO tools. I'm going to show you some basic SEO tools. You're not going to need that much. The first one that I like is SEMrush. This is actually a premium tool, so you do have to pay for this. So SEMrush, I strongly recommend getting SEMrush. The other tool that I'll recommend is Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog is a website crawler, and we're going to show you exactly how you use it in this video. This tool is actually very amazing. So even though it says pricing, you just get the free version. So they have a paid and a free. I like the free version. It does pretty much everything that I need, at least. So SEMrush, Screaming Frog, and then you need access to the analytics in the search console of the website you're going to be auditing. Other than that, any other tools that I mentioned on here are going to just be free on the web, but these are the main tools to at least have to begin with. And last but not least, you need your time and attention, of course, right? Not just your attention to watch this full video to the end, but also to make sure that you don't skimp out on the audits when you're doing it for the website. Make sure to really pay attention and dig deep and get all the audit done properly, because I can't stress enough, in the future, you don't want to find out that the reason the website you've been working out for so long isn't ranking because you skipped out on some part of this audit. Now, once you have all those tools, you also need to understand what a proper SEO audit includes. We need to look at this from the overview. A proper audit includes a web design audit, yes. So even though it says this an SEO audit, the web design audit is still very important. In the web design audit, the reason we do that is if it's a terrible web design, not only is it not going to convert customers on that website, whether it's yours or the clients, but it's also because clients are going to land on the website and they're not going to spend that much time, right? And Google measures that, the session duration, the reason, the amount of time that people are spending, which is part of our audit, our SEO audit, which affects rankings. And then another thing is if people land on the website, right? If they type in something, they land on a website. Let's say they put in construction, Los Angeles. Let's say that's your website. Let's say this is you. But let's say they get to this website and they back out of there immediately and they just bounce. That's a bounce rate issue. If people are bouncing, Google is not going to like that. So your web design is important, and I strongly believe it should be part of your audit. I don't know why most people don't do that. Second thing is the on-page audit. Okay, so this is exactly how it sounds. You're auditing the technical issues on your website. Just how it sounds, on the page, on the website. Then after that, if you have a local business, this only applies, right? This part of the audit only applies if you have some sort of local service business or just any local business. Then you're most likely going to have a Google My Business or I think Google calls it Google Business Profile nowadays. So if we type in, for example, some sort of local business, this map listing right here is basically your GMB or your GBP, right? Google Business Profile. It's going to take me a while to start calling it by what Google calls it now. In my world, it's still GMB. The next thing is the off-page audit. Now, this is exactly how it sounds. You are now auditing not the technical issues on the website itself, but the SEO optimization you're doing on the web, not on your website. Technically, it still affects your website, but it's the things you're doing out in the web. This means things like you're building links to your website, right? Your website's linking out to you. You're doing that outreach, but however ways you're getting your links, right? Those links need to be audited. And then if you have citations, this is mostly, again, if you have a local business, citations, it just means directories that you're listed on. We want to make sure those directories are properly done, and we're going to audit those as well for local business in that case. Then we're going to go ahead and audit your Google Analytics and then your Search Console. And that'll, for the most part, be a very comprehensive audit for the most part. Let's make this go quickly, right? Let's get into the bare and bones of this audit. Let's start with web design. Web design audit this is how it works. Let me pick a website. So CleanZen, let's say we want to do a web design audit. The very first thing I like to do is just a look audit. The look audit just means you look at the website. How does it look on the desktop? And I would also look at this on mobile. So I'll do both. Right now I'm not doing it on both, but that's what you want to do. Does the mobile version look good? Does the desktop version look good? Is it appealing? Let's just start with that. If it looks like an old 2000 style website, we might need to fix it. Okay, that's why usually in our agency, web design or web redesign is a big part of our first step in a campaign. We have other reasons why we do web redesign first too, but this is one of the reasons. Now, once we looked at that, the next thing we want to look at is the nav menu, right? The navigation menu. This navigation menu, we want to make sure it has a couple of things. One, especially if it's a business website, every website is different. Right now I'm using a business website. If you have a blog, it's going to be a little different, but there's usually going to be a call to action here, phone number, book now, or something that's going to get you to do something, your main call to action. So it should always be there. Right here would be your main pages. So if it's a business website, your about, your services, pricing, all the big ones, FAQ, and so on. All the big things should be here. Now, there are some ideas on how this should be properly structured, right? Usually it's recommended it's your about first, then your services, and so on. And the more it gets closer to the right, it's usually the pages that you want people to click more of, like buying related things. That's usually how it's recommended, at least. Another thing I like to look at after that is the hero section. So the hero section is basically this little thing right here, right? The very first thing we see. It depends what kind of website you have, but usually it's going to have some sort of header, one big header. This header is going to let people know what your website is about. When people land here with this title or this header, they should automatically know what the topic of the website is. It shouldn't be left up to confusion. Usually a second header, smaller header is usually recommended, which kind of gives it a description of what's happening, usually a call to action, or just a quick little description of what this website is about, and people get the idea. Right when they land, they know exactly what they're looking at. After that, usually above the hero section, especially again, if it's a business website, I recommend that there is some sort of call to action, right? Your main call to action. In this case, our main call to action is getting people's name, email, and phone number. So there is a lead form, or even if there's no lead form, it should just be a button that says get a price. Or maybe it's for booking, it should say book now. That's the very first thing I like to look for. And the background should be either an image, a video that goes together and just overall looks nice. And all the stuff here is good too. You know, these trust factors that this website did. So that's the hero section. And then another thing you want to look for is throughout the website, especially on the main landing page. You'll see their homepage is their main landing page. Is there a call to action throughout the page? So that means there should be a button. Every few sections, there should be a button that says get instant pricing. You know, because when people scroll, they almost forget about the call to action and then they end up leaving. There's some, right here. Okay. But I would add some more buttons up here. Because what you don't want is you don't want them scrolling and they go, oh yeah, and then they back out. Again, that means they bounced out of your site. It affects your ranking, but also it affects you even getting customers. After that, another thing I would look for is the structure of the landing page. So the main landing page, again, their homepage seems to be their main landing page right now. Again, this all depends on what kind of website you have. But their main landing page, the structure, doesn't make sense. Your website is supposed to be a salesman. Does it make sense? Because if it can't keep people on and it can't educate them like a salesperson would, then they're going to back out and leave, which affects your ranking later and just your bottom line, customers. If I went like this, I mean, I don't know if I would put testimonials up here, but you can, right? And if you did put testimonials, I wouldn't put an embed of the Google review. So it'd be something much more amazing, like people's faces and whatnot, or just in a way that looks good. That's the only thing I disagree with here. But the structure, quickly lets you how things work, that there's a guarantee, reasons to love them, reasons to go with them, just a little something about them, and then customize your service. Could it be done better? Yeah. But the whole goal is when somebody lands, you're telling them how does this work? Who is this for? Why should they go with you? what are the things you're selling if you are selling something, so on. So that should be your main landing page anyways. That's at least the goal. So the structure needs to make sense. And then the next thing I like to look at, are they using important factors on their landing page? Your landing page should have important factors that makes people convert or stay or continue looking throughout your website. We want them to keep looking through your website. There should be images. Like if it's a business website like this, like a local service especially, I would put more images of people, right? This one has people, if you scroll here, which is not bad. It could be better. But the reason you want to put images of human beings is people trust people instead of just a blank website or a company. It gives it a different vibe, a different feel almost. Just images of people looks more trustworthy. But again, depends on your website and what kind of business you might be in. That's one thing I would look for. Another thing I would look for is testimonials. So this one has testimonials. It's just I'm not a fan of how this testimonial was done. That's another one, right? Testimonials are very important if it's a business website. Another one is trust logos, some sort of like, hey, vendors or companies we worked with, and putting their logos on there usually helps, makes people trust you. Another thing, if you're a business website, I guarantee helps a lot. Another thing that I can think of at the top of my head, you should have a why choose us, why go with us, benefits of working with us. Basically, these are the important factors, how these things work, service, basically the things I said, right? The things you're selling and so on. Other than that, I usually scroll all the way down to the bottom and check out the footer. Design needs to look good, but also it should link to the important pages, links to the social media icons. It has service areas, recent articles, blog contact. You could probably do a better use of the footer for other important pages, but overall, this is okay. This will do. And of course, your terms of service, privacy policy, sitemap, very important for SEO, which we'll get into in just a sec. Then I like to check to make sure that their about page makes sense, their service page makes sense, or their product page, and so on. Okay. That's usually the web design audit. This makes sure that, again, clients like the site, stay on the site, continue interacting with the site, ideally convert. But even if they don't convert, the fact that they're interacting with the site and going from one page to another page instead of backing out and bouncing out will make sure that your rankings aren't affected. Always do the design audit first. Then after that, what we want to do is the on-page SEO audit. Now, this is where we're going to get technical, okay? So the very first thing I would start with if I was auditing this website is the site even indexed? Because if you're dealing with a website that Google's not even indexing, what's the point? A lot of people forget to start with this. I would go ahead and do cleanzen.com. This is what I do, site:cleanzen.com. And all the pages that come up are basically the pages that Google recognizes and are indexed. If you do this to a website and a bunch of pages that should be on there are missing, most likely Google is not even picking it up, and we need to look further into that. Sure, you could do this, but I don't think that's enough to see. You can go to the website, click View Page Source by right-clicking on it, Control F, and you can check Index. And it says Content equals Index, which is great. But that doesn't necessarily mean Google's picking it up. The only way you know if Google is picking it up is by doing this. This is one of the easiest ways to see what pages Google is picking up. The next thing is the SSL. So when you go to cleanzen.com and you look at the HTTPS, if they don't even have an SSL, if it doesn't say HTTPS, that's already an issue. But let's say they have an HTTPS, right? One thing that you want to make sure is not happening is when you take out the S right here and it's just HTTP and we press enter, it should automatically forward back to HTTPS. Okay, it should redirect on its own. If it doesn't do that, that is a huge issue. Okay, so it has to do that. And I wouldn't just do it on the homepage. We've seen sites sometimes that it looks like it's working perfectly on the homepage or another page, but we go to their pricing, for example, and we do the same thing where we take out the S and we reload it, and it just won't reload properly. It doesn't say HTTPS at the end, and it remains HTTP. That is not good. That means in Google's eyes, you have two versions of the website, an HTTPS version and an HTTP version. That's not good because a duplicate website will basically harm your rankings. So in Google's eyes, it's almost like you have two versions of the same website. Make sure that does not exist. Once you've done that, you want to make sure, do the necessary pages exist? The necessary pages are your about page. Google actually crawls for these to make sure you're a legitimate website, because as a website, if you're missing these pages, Google will think you're just a spammy company or a spammy website. So you have to have an about page. You have to have a contact page, a terms of service, a privacy policy page. Of course, the other basics would be great, obviously. services and so on. The more info you have about the business or the business website, the better. But those ones are critical: about, contact form, terms of service, privacy policy. I know I'm probably forgetting something else, but make sure to build out the other essential pages. If it needs an FAQ, a services, and so on, definitely build those out as well. But those 4 or so pages are pretty crucial to let Google know that you're not just a spammy website. And of course, the homepage, that should exist. Another thing I like to do, because Google really cares about a website being mobile friendly, is you just type in mobile friendly test. Back in the day, it used to be the Google mobile friendly test. Because that tool no longer exists, I like to use this one currently. And you just type in a website, you just put analyze. And once it analyzes, it will let you know whether or not the website is mobile friendly. Okay. This test is pretty ideal. In fact, it's one of the very first things you should do. If the website is not mobile friendly, you need to go ahead and fix that ASAP. This page needs improvements. This should be at least 90 or above, and it should have been green. So this is why you want to do a mobile friendly test. Another thing you want to do is the page speed. Google cares a lot about the page speed of a website. They want to serve only the websites that are speedy enough, and they don't want to serve bad websites. I like the Pingdom, right, page speed test, and I also like GT metrics. These are my favorite. You would type in your website, and you would test it from, this company is in the USA, and I would just put San Francisco. It's close enough to them. Whatever location is close enough to their city from the drop down. And then I would do the same thing on GT metrics. I would go to GT metrics, and I'll put in easywaymades.com and test now. And it will scan it, and it will take its time. And what we're looking for is we want to make sure that the page speed is below 3 seconds. In this case, it is 822 millisecond. So it's pretty fast. We also want to make sure the requests isn't too crazy high. But let me see. And then same thing on GT metrics. Usually I like to validate with both Pingdom and GT metrics to make sure that the page speed is in fact under 3 seconds. Okay. You could also do page speed insights by Google themselves, and it will tell you a bunch of things that you probably need to fix, and it goes a little more in depth. So I'll go ahead and even do it on there to see if there's anything we need to fix. Ideally, if your site is under 3 seconds, it's usually good. But again, I still recommend doing all of these 3 to get a great overview of the page speed. Let's get a little more technical. I'm going to exit out of these while they're loading. So this is, for example, this website is doing great, right? As you can see with this page speed. Now let's get a little more technical. The next thing I'd like to look at is the robots text page on a client's website. It looks something like this. To get there, all we have to do is type in cleanzen.com, robots.text, right? And this is how the page will load up. Once you're here though, what you don't want to do is you don't want to get too confused with all this stuff here. So don't let that throw you off. The main thing we're looking at is the disallow section, because the robots text page in general tells Google on how they should crawl your website, on how Google should crawl your website. The disallow section is basically, if there's a disallow, colon, and then let's say there's a page here, it's basically telling it, hey, Google, we don't want you picking up this page. Don't index it. So if it says disallow, colon, and then let's say there's a slash right after, you see this little symbol? One of these symbols? Imagine it was right here after that colon. You're basically telling Google, we don't want the home page, aka the root directory, being picked up by Google. In most cases, that would be a bad thing because most websites would want that being picked up. So you're just looking out for that. In this case, it's colon and there's nothing here. So if there's nothing here, then it's not telling Google not to pick up anything. What you could put here actually though is /WP admin. What that means is if this is a WordPress website, which it is, telling Google, we don't want you picking up our login page, the login that we use to log into our website. We don't want you picking that up. That's actually okay. That's good. But you just want to make sure it's not blocking important pages on your website from being picked up by Google. And then another best practice to have is having the sitemap right here. So inside of the robots text page, you want to make sure that this is just a good recommendation. You're telling Google, hey, this is our sitemap, check it out, and then make sure to index all the pages on that sitemap. That's basically what that means. Which brings us to the next thing. Make sure the sitemap is set up properly. What does that mean? You want to make sure that the website you're working on has an XML sitemap. Okay. Some websites, what they'll do is they'll create a page, they'll call it sitemap, and they'll list all their URLs. That is not a proper sitemap. We need an XML sitemap. So the way we find that is we go cleanzen.com slash sitemap.xml. So there should be an XML sitemap like this set up. If you have Yoast SEO and you're on WordPress, it will automatically make it for you unless you somehow disable it on there. Anything that's listed on here are the things that you want Google to pick up. So in this case, we have the pages and the posts section. And if you click on the pages, these are all the pages we want Google to pick up. And if we go back and we look at the posts, these are all the blog posts we want Google to pick up. Now, your sitemap might have other things, right? You might have categories, like a bunch of other things that your website is picking up. If you don't want those things being picked up, go in there, disable them, or no index them, especially if it's a page you don't want ranking. And usually the pages that you don't want to show up or get indexed by Google are pages that just make no sense to even get indexed for Google. It doesn't make any sense, meaning like an author page. For most websites, there's no reason their author page is getting picked up, or their promo code page. You know what I mean? Those are not the things you're trying to rank on Google. The things you should be indexing are usually the pages that you are trying to rank, okay? Those plus your essential pages. Essential pages, remember, are home, about, terms of service, privacy policy, and I would make sure to index, of course, your other essential pages like your services, FAQ, and so on. These are just the essential pages, even though most of these pages won't rank, right? You know, FAQ is not about to rank, but, you know, or neither is your about page going to rank. But those are essential pages you want Google to see exist. That's probably one of the few pages that will make sure it gets indexed. Other than that, any other page I typically want indexed are pages that we want to actually rank. If we don't want them to rank, but we need them on our website, we'll keep them, but we'll no index them. And you can easily do that by logging in and putting, if you have Yoast SEO in a WordPress website, just no index it. That option is there, and it will tell Google not to pick it up. And if it's not getting picked up, it won't show up on the sitemap. Basically, yeah, the site, it won't appear here if you no index it. The next thing I like to check for are broken links. The way we look for broken links, and there's a few ways that we do it in our agency. Broken links will affect your website tremendously because Google doesn't like broken links. It doesn't like to crawl and then see that a URL is now missing. And when it goes to it, it's a 404. A 404 link means, hey, like we can't find it. So Google doesn't like that. And it's also bad for the user because the user thinks that the link exists on your website. It goes there and it's broken. Google does not like to serve websites like that have a lot of broken links to their user. Again, it affects your rankings. And they also don't like crawling websites with a lot of broken links where you're basically telling it a 404 just means I can't find it. Okay, it's not saying the page is gone. That's a different conversation. If you say, hey, the page is gone, it's called a 410, not a 404. You want your pages either 410. If it has a 410 code, that means the page is gone, it's been permanently removed. A 404 is not permanently removed. And that's what a lot of people make a mistake. They delete a page on their website, and is now, if you go to that old URL that they deleted, it says 404. Bad mistake. It should either redirect or it should be 410. Okay? When somebody goes on that URL, it needs to either redirect to another page that makes sense, or you need to let Google has been removed. So broken link checker is a free tool. We use this as well as a few other things. I like to use a combination of multiple tools because the tools on their own won't sometimes pick it up. One tool will pick up something else. I like to go ahead and check inside of Screaming Frog as well. So remember the tool that we talked about way earlier. You would put in a client's website. So in this case, we just put easywaymates.com and you click start and it searches it and it will come up with all this. So it will come up with all the URLs on the website on the left-hand side and it'll show you the status code for each URL, for example. You know, what we're looking for is it should say either 200, which is good. When a URL is working properly, it'll be 200. If it's been redirected, it'll say a 301. We do want to pay attention to those, make sure those redirects are working properly. If we go to this URL and it's moved permanently, it should be redirecting to a URL that makes sense. If it's not, you know, be on the lookout for those redirects too. Don't want to forget that. You also want to look for any other weird status codes that doesn't make sense, a 403 or something like that. We want to look for, let's see, any 404s. We don't see any 404s, so that's good from Screaming Frog. But I would also check inside of here. I would put Easy Way Mates here as well. And you put find broken links, you fill it out, BMQ, report all occurrence of each dead link, maybe slower, find broken links. You let it process, and eventually it will give you a report. Okay. Other ways that we check for broken links is also inside of the Search Console, inside of here. So the Search Console will also go ahead and do its job. If you go inside of Search Console and you go into the pages indexing, sometimes they'll go ahead and show you certain things that are not found or 404s. If those things shouldn't be 404s, or if you already fixed them, sometimes they'll still show up until you let Search Console know that you fixed it. But again, this is another way to find 404s for the website. We use a combination of different tools to check for 404s. Another thing right after broken links that I like to look for, I'm actually going to show you duplicate content, and then I'm going to go to this section. There's a reason I'm doing that. The very next thing that is terrible for your website is actually duplicate content. Duplicate content on your website is one of the worst things you could do after broken links, or probably on the same equal level. If on your site you have a page and then you have another page that's almost the same, or it's using the majority of similar content, because some of the pages are so similar, they'll take a lot of the wording from one and put it onto the other. You want to make sure you're not doing that, a word for word copy. And you definitely should not be copying content from other people's website. That's a no-go, okay? That's definitely going to hurt you guys. The way you check for duplicate content within a website is you type in SiteLiner, find duplicate content on your website. I'll use cleanzen.com. And it's going to go ahead and load up. And it's going to scan the entire site. And once it's done, it will let you know if there are duplicate content. And it will even show you by percentages. The great thing about this little tool is that it will show you if you have a page and some of the pages have a little bit of duplication. Maybe you copy 50% from this page and put it here. It will let you know the 2 pages that have that. This is a powerful tool. If you have duplicate content, make sure to go in there and fix that ASAP. Let's look at thin content or no value pages. What is a thin content? A thin content page basically means pages that are pretty useless for the user. You just have a page just to have it. And there's a few ways of looking for thin content. Some of the ways I like to look for thin content is actually like this: site : let's put this company. When you look, you basically want to think with the idea of these pages that are being picked up by Google on the site, are they pages that we should be indexing? And again, we could do this like this. We can do it also, they have a sitemap, right? A proper website should have a sitemap, XML sitemap. You can also check from here as well. They have a lot of things that they're being picked up, for example, this website. And the question becomes, let's start with their page. Do they have any pages that doesn't make sense that they're putting in their sitemap, which they're asking Google to get picked up for? Homepage FAQ, for example, is okay. These service pages are okay. Their book now is no big deal. I don't know why they have another sitemap getting picked up. I see a page that they made called sitemap. See? Okay. That's not bad either. This is an example of a no value page. There's no reason this is getting indexed by Google or you're telling it to index. This is just a no value page. It has no value. You need to de-index it or delete it permanently with a 410. Make sure it's not a broken link. Look at this featured section. I don't know. Yeah, there's no point of this either. I don't know why it's getting picked up. Your reviews page. Do we really want that picked up? What is this? No, not really. Okay. That's the main thing. You want to do that and look at your pages, your posts, your blog posts. Some of these blog posts probably don't make any sense. They shouldn't get picked up. You want to make sure pages like this aren't getting picked up. And then on top of that, look at this author sitemap. No reason. There's no reason this is getting picked up. Look, your about author page, your author page, the fact that it's Rocket Mates, this as a page shouldn't get picked up. It has no value getting picked up as a page. Remove it. Archive pages. Remove them. I mean, when I say remove them, no index them. Google is now crawling a bunch of things that it doesn't need to crawl on your website. You want to keep your website lean and mean of at least what Google's picking up. Inside of your website, you can have a complete mess behind in the back end, right? All your web pages, whatever. I don't recommend it, but you can have a mess. But at least what you're presenting to Google, it should be nice, lean, and mean. Just the essential pages plus the pages you want to rank for the most part. That's some of the ways to quickly find no value pages. Now, thin content, which is kind of, it's not exactly the same thing, but thin content just means content on the website that nobody is really benefiting from. You might have a true blog post, for example. Look at this. There might be a blog post out here that's real. If we put it into SEMrush, I'm going to put rocketmazela.com. Okay. I'm going to put them in here. Once they scan, let's see. Okay, they're getting 1.5K visitors. We go to the organic research section, and we're going to look at their pages. We're going to dissect their pages. We go to pages, okay? And when we look at their pages, we're going to see for this page, this is how much traffic they're getting. For this page, they're getting this much. So when we start to go, you'll see their other pages are getting 0 traffic. If you have a lot of pages getting 0 traffic, you need to either redo it, unless you just launched it. You either need to re-optimize it so it gets traffic, or if it's like a blog post or a page that doesn't serve any purpose, or it's just bad content and it's probably never going to rank, you need to remove it or redirect it to another similar page that is getting traffic, but that's usually considered a no value page. So some websites, what they'll do is they'll create so many blog posts because they've heard that blog posts are good for their website, especially business websites. And they'll create these blog posts, but these blog posts have no value. They don't help anybody. They don't rank for anything. Nobody really reads them. It doesn't get readers. So you just have 50 blog posts that nobody reads or cares about or is landing on. You need to remove that. That's just junk. You need to create, if you're going to create a blog post, create quality content, get it to rank, get traffic to it, make sure it's actually useful so people continue to come to it. A lot of these pages, of course they have service pages. It's not that they need to remove that, right? Some of their service pages needs to be re-optimized, but some of their posts probably, they don't need to be picked up. And then on top of that, look at what else we found. What is this? Tag Los Angeles. This is why I don't recommend using, this is another thing that I'm going to cover in just a sec, but meta tags. Don't use them. Tags. You're creating an unnecessary page for no reason called rockymesala.com/tag/Los Angeles. That tag is not necessary. Tags end up creating a bunch of pages and a bunch of volume on your site for no reason. And yeah, there's just no point. It just creates junk. Look at this author, the one we talked about, category. I personally don't like to index my category because, again, it creates too much of this. See this? Your category, I get it. Under this category are all these blog posts. I mean, in some businesses, it might make maybe some sense, but for most cases, your category pages, it just creates a lot of junk, especially if you have a lot of categories. Something I should point out here, no dates in your blog posts, okay? This is bad. This needs to be fixed. No dates in your blog post, okay? Bad slug, bad URL structure. Get rid of pages that don't get traffic, that aren't meant to rank. And if they aren't ranking and you need them on there, start re-optimizing them. Pages like this, like an author, a tag page, whatever, remove that. Doesn't need to be on there, okay? Now let's talk about optimizations. Let's look at things like the meta title, okay, and the meta description. Now the meta title and the meta description is when you look at a website, a meta title is basically this thing up here. And the meta description is this thing right here. Very important for SEO optimization. I'm not going to go into how to optimize meta titles, meta description right now. I'm just going to tell you that when you're auditing a website, though, there are things you want to look for. You want to make sure that they do have, all their pages has a meta title and all their pages has a meta description, and they hit a minimum requirement of character length, right? It's not too short, not too long, especially on the important pages you're trying to rank. You can get away with that on a blog page, FAQ page, pages you don't really plan on ranking. You might get away with just, a short meta description. Ideally, though, take the time to really fill it out. Let Google know that you're actually making an effort. Put a proper meta title, put a proper meta description. You can get away with it for at least the pages you're not trying to rank for. But the pages you are trying to rank for, the important money pages, make sure you have proper length of meta title, meta description. The way we can look at that is we'll go to Screaming Frog back again, and we'll look at all the URLs. This tool right now is actually picking up even image URLs that we don't really need. I'll go ahead and show you. Bear with me here. If we look at the meta titles, all, okay, there we go. So these are all the meta titles. So for each URL, these are the titles. So there should be a meta title to begin with. That's the first thing we're looking for. We're not looking for if it's properly keyword optimized or not right now. That's not really what we're looking for. That's not the purpose of this audit. When you want to optimize, that's done later. Another thing we want to look at is the character length. Is it making sense, right? Especially for the important pages, homepage, location page. It's not really necessary to do anything more than this. The blog page, service policy page. It doesn't really need more than that. But their blog posts that they're trying to rank, are they actually trying to do it properly? And then another thing you want to make sure, if it's a business website, avoid putting, for some reason, your phone numbers in here, okay? It might sound like a good idea when somebody sees your phone number here, or the way you see Los Angeles House Cleaners is doing it. They have their phone number here. I don't recommend putting it on your meta title or meta description. Now, you might say, look, it's working for them. They're ranking at the top. Yes. But there are multiple ranking factors to rank a website. They might be hitting all the other right buttons to rank. But this still doesn't take away from the point that if you put your phone number either in the meta title or in the meta description, what's going to happen is people are going to see your number, and a percentage of people are just going to take out their phone, see that, and they're going to call you. That sounds like a good thing in the beginning, which it is. You're getting business. But on a long-term scale, Google is going to see that a percentage of people, when you're on here, they typed a term, they saw your page, they never clicked on it. Google doesn't know that they called you. Google has no idea that they just saw your number and called you. All it knows is that the click-through rate has gotten down, And because enough people aren't clicking on you, then of course you start to rank lower and lower. Because now Google goes, nobody really likes the site. They start to rank you lower, and they want to serve the ones that are getting clicked on the most. Be on the lookout for that in the meta title and the meta description. Another thing to watch out for in the meta title is keyword cannibalization. You want to make sure you're not cannibalizing your keywords. What does that mean? You want to make sure multiple pages aren't going after the same keyword. For example, you see the homepage says maid service Austin house cleaning. We have a rough idea of what keyword they're going for. But if we look at another page and it also says maid service Austin, well, we have a problem. There's targeting the same keyword. And now your two pages are cannibalizing each other. They're eating each other. They're trying to outrank each other. So they're fighting. You have an internal conflict. You don't want that. Look out for keyword cannibalization when it comes to meta title. Another thing is make sure every single meta title is unique. That also goes now for meta description. So if I look at meta descriptions now, we look at meta descriptions, look at this. Meta description, let's see. For the meta description, you'll see that this client, for their homepage, they have the meta description, but the rest of their pages has zero meta description. That is not good. You need a meta description, okay? You need not just a meta description with proper length, but it also needs to make sure you are not using duplicate meta description. Do not use the same meta description you used here, also here. Also, again, like I said, do not include your phone number here. Make sure your meta description is written to kind of get somebody to click on your website, right? It's to appeal, it's to make people want to click. More clicks, higher rankings. This is not where you stuff it with keywords. So make sure if the client or the website you're auditing, if they're just stuffing the hell out of their meta description with keywords, that's not the proper use for it. You can include a keyword here and there, but that's not the main goal of the meta description. So no duplicate meta description. It has to be unique. That's the meta description. And then I like to check to make sure, like this, right? Meta description 1. When you're on Screaming Frog, if you see a meta description 2 section, that is not good. Okay? That happens on some websites. Seeing it out there now. Meta description 1, and if it says meta description 2, what that means is there's some sort of error or bug on the website where it's creating 2 meta descriptions. What now is going to confuse the hell out of Google, and they don't know which meta description to pick up. There should only be one meta description on your site. If you see a meta description section like this, right? And some sites I've seen meta description section like this, and it's blank. You're like, whoa, where's the meta description? And then you keep scrolling and you see a meta description 2, and all the descriptions are on there. That's also bad. Because now, again, in Google's eyes, there's 2 meta description. One is filled out, one isn't. And now Google is just all over confused. There should not be a second meta description section at all. It should just be one. If you find that needs to be fixed. So only one meta description section exists. Okay? So that's meta titles and meta descriptions. The main thing we want to look at when we're auditing is a header 1 tag. We're going to go ahead and put, let's see, header 1, right? We're going to look at all the header 1s. So what is a header 1? A header 1 is basically this thing right here. Should I go back to CleanZen? Yeah. So CleanZen.com. The header 1 is basically the very first thing at the top right here. Okay, it's the main header. Now, just because it's up here doesn't mean Google recognizes it as a header. Some people will have a big text here, but it's actually in Google's eyes. Google can't read it the way we read it. They read it in code. So if we right click View Page Source, and we do Control F, and we do this little angle thing, and then we put H1. Now it'll show us where the header 1 is, where in the code where header 1 is. And look at this. Boston's #1 maid service and housekeeping service is the header 1 on this page. So yes, so this is in fact the header 1, and that's how it's communicating it to Google. If you do this and you can't find an H1, that means a header 1 does not exist. It doesn't matter if there's a big text on the website. That text needs to be inside of a header 1 tag like this in the code. Okay? And some people, what they'll have is they'll have a header here, and they'll have a header here. And then when we do the H1 tag, this is actually the header, right? In the HTML code and not this one. So you got to make sure the right thing is the header 1. And the header 1 is very important. That is communicating to Google what that page is about. And usually this is where you put your keyword as well. That's a big one. Another thing is you want to make sure a page does not have 2 header 1s, right? There should only be one. It's going to confuse Google. Only one header 1 tag. So on this landing page, there should only be one header 1 tag. Okay? If I do this H101 and I find another one, not good. We need to remove that. Only one header can exist. It's like when you write an essay. Only one header can exist. One main header. It's one main header per landing page, that is. Okay? So that's what we're auditing for. No multiple headers on one page. And also we're making sure that there is a header one on all the pages, which in this case there's no missing header ones, which is good practice. And then let's see, it says duplicate. Yeah, so these two pages seems to be using the same header one tag. For the most part, that's what we're looking for. The header one tags are not missing. There's no duplicates ideally, unless there's a good reason for it across multiple landing pages. There should only be one header one tag per page. The next thing we look at on a website is proper website silo. Okay, the proper structure. Okay, so for example, if we're looking at a business website, the categories have to make sense. Like the hierarchy of the website. Like when you're first auditing a website, you might not have created or designed or have an idea of how the structure should look, but there should be some structure. There should be some hierarchy. Like this is the homepage. Okay, it's house cleaning in Boston. So when we look at the services and we go to house cleaning, see, it's properly categorized. It's a service and it's house cleaning. Okay, there's some silo aspect to it. It's not all over the place. It's a service. We can see that there's some ideas to it. And then the homepage and the location. Or if they did the homepage, locations, Chicago. It's still good structure. So they have some sort of structure. So that's good. At least we know that the website has some sort of structure or architecture to it. And it's not just the homepage slash all other pages, right? There's a proper categorization system on this site. Is there a way to do it better? Sure. But that's not what we're getting into. We just want to see if they even have a structure. Same thing goes for their blog. Same thing goes for the blog post. If you go ahead and let's see, who should we go look at? Let's look back at easywaymates.com/blog. These are the blog posts. But let's look at it from the sitemap. And if we go to their post, you'll see that it says easywaymates.com/blog/how to find a reliable cleaning service. Is this properly categorized? I mean, it's okay enough, but the proper categorization would have been /blog/the category. You know, they should have categories in their blog posts, right? They're not always talking about one topic usually. So, for example, this looks like a cleaning tips. So you should have a category called cleaning tips. So you should say /blog/cleaning tips / the name of the page. That's usually a proper categorization. It's not that category is needed, but it's ideal. But here's what cannot happen, I don't recommend, is easywaymates.com/how to find a reliable cleaning service is a no-go. It should at least say /blog. Let Google know as well as users that they're on the blog, then the post, okay? Not everything can just be easywaymates.com / the name of the URL. That's one. Two, if they are using categories, in this case they're not, but let's say they were, what cannot happen is one post has multiple categories. Some sites do this, but it's recommended that this post, if it's in the cleaning tips category, let's say we have a category called cleaning tips, it should be /blog/cleaning tips and then how to find a reliable cleaning service. And that's the only one that exists. There should not be another version of it. Cleaning tutorials. Let's say they have another category, cleaning tutorials /URL. What you've just done is you created some form of duplicate content on your site, or it feels like it, with the same URL, of the same post. One post should be per one category. One post shouldn't have 2, 3, 4 categories, ideally. So that's how you do proper categorization for a blog post. And then the last thing is no meta tags. I am not a fan of meta tags for the reasons I showed here. See this? Like when you have meta tags on a site, it just creates a bunch of random URLs for no reason, like tag move out cleaning. They actually had a lot earlier. Tag house cleaning, tag Santa Monica. It's just unnecessary. Google doesn't like it anymore. It's just a no. It not only does it overstuff your site with a bunch of keywords, but it overstuffs it with a bunch of unnecessary URLs. It's just unnecessary. So no meta tags is my biggest thing that I would say, right? That's the major things that we look at when auditing the actual website itself. But after that, we would usually move to auditing the map listing. If it was a local business or a local service company, we would go ahead and audit the Google My Business, or also known as Google Business Profile currently. So for that, if that's what you have, if you have a local business and you have a map listing like that that needs to be audited, I'll go ahead and actually create a separate video, and it'll be in the description, called the Local SEO Audit Tutorial. That'll go ahead and cover all the nuances of auditing that map listing. Then after that, we move on to the Offpage SEO audit. Now, this is where we audit all the things that is not on the website, but it still affects your website. And these are things like your backlinks, right? So because Google likes when websites link out to you and mention you, and that's usually a good sign that you're a popular website and you're authoritative. But it can't just be any website linking out to you. You can't have any spammy website linking out to you, for example, right? You want to make sure those websites aren't linking out to you, but also there's a few other things you want to look for to make sure your backlink profile isn't actually hurting you instead of benefiting you. So what I like to do is I go to SEMrush. I'll put in, for example, who should I put in? I'll put in Easy Way Maids. And in fact, the best way to do it is I'll go to the Backlink Audit tool, or the Backlink Analytics is better. And I'll go to easywaymaids.com. And when I do this, there we go. Let's start with this. It has 304 websites. That's what a referring domain is. And there are 571 backlinks. Backlinks are just the amount of times somebody mentions you. So you can have one website, for example, and have 100 backlinks. That just means that one website has mentioned you 100 times and linked out to you 100 times. So that's why that ratio will always be different. I usually will have more backlinks than referring domains, mainly because sometimes some websites will link out to you multiple times from different part of their pages or blog posts. The main thing we want to look for, though, that for this 304 website are the amount of backlinks too high. That ratio has to be correct. If you have 304 websites linking out to you, but let's say you have like 3,000 backlinks, that's completely off. That looks spammy. Why are websites linking out to you that many times per website? There shouldn't be that big of a huge ratio difference. 300 to 500 is not to 571 ratio is not bad. It was 300 to 800. Now that starts to get a little weird. That's the first thing I'll look at is the ratio. The second thing I like to look at is if you're in SEMrush, it will tell you the toxicity score. It will usually let you know that a lot of the links are probably bad. And you can go to the Backlink Audit and it will show you all the sites that it thinks are toxic or spammy. So you can actually go each website and see which ones are causing that high toxicity level. And it'll show you the toxicity score right here. So 40 is actually not bad. But the higher it gets, it'll usually turn red. The reason it's not showing up is because we just disavowed it. We barely started on this campaign. We're still working on it, right? It's very early on into this campaign. We just removed it. That's why it's not here. Put it into the disavow. These are all the URLs that were bad and that had a high toxicity score. You want to go ahead and look out for those. You also want to make sure when you're looking at the links, make sure they're getting links from sites that make sense. For example, this is a clean business. So a clean business can get a link from like a mom blog or a cleaning blog, or another business or a directory and so on. That makes sense. But if they're getting links from just unrelated websites, you might want to look into it. Unless it's like some sort of government website or a donation site and so on. You want to make sure they're getting relevant links too on top of that. So once you've looked at the referring domain to backlink ratio, you've checked the toxicity of the links. Another thing I like to look at is just in general, are they sustaining a nice, steady influx of backlinks? Are they building backlinks nice and steady? Or is it this thing where they don't have backlinks for years or for months, and then they have one big spike where they get a bunch of links all at once? That looks really odd to Google. How are you just getting 50 links one day and then you're back to zero? It looks like you're doing that in a spammy way, and Google doesn't like that. You want to show signs of a nice, steady backlink profile. You can use the new and lost referring domains and backlinks to see throughout the last 6 months. They had one big spike on here, probably a lot of spam, to be honest. I'm pretty sure it's not real websites, but you can go deep into this and start dissecting it, and you can see they're barely getting any. And a lot of these, I bet you again, are mostly spammy website links that are just happening on their own. So they're not really building real backlinks on a sustained basis if you dissect this. And you can see with the referring domain, you can see the graph. They had a big uptick at one point. Again, we could dissect this by going deep into the site, and then you can see a drop off. This drop off doesn't always mean that they're not building backlinks. Sometimes what's happening is bad websites or bad spammy links, if they have a lot and they get removed, the domain amount might go down, even if you're building good backlinks, right, at the same time. But all those bad domains that you removed can start to create a steep hill, or maybe if you're just losing links. That's neither here nor there, but that's the gist of it. So you want to see that they have a nice sustained influx of links coming in. And another thing I like to look at, me personally, I like to go to Majestic SEO. It's this tool right here. And you can actually type in easywaymaids.com. It will come up with these scores for you. The two important scores we're looking at is the trust flow and the citation flow. The trust flow, this score is basically saying how trustworthy the links you're getting to your site are. So it's a score of 15 right now. Okay. And it says the citation flow, though, is just the volume of links you're getting. So when it gives a score, it's a 17. What we're looking honestly here, though, is the ratio between the trust flow and the citation flow. It should be as close as possible of 1-to-1 ratio. So this is close. A 15-to-15 ratio is great. 15-to-17 is still great. That's not bad. This is where, but the ratio where you want to start, it might pique your interest, right? Is when, let's say you have a trust flow of 15, but the citation flow says 50 or 60. That's a weird ratio. If the trust flow is at 15, but the citation flow is at like 60, what it's saying is this is how much trust there is from the links you're building, right? How trustworthy they look, but there's a huge volume of citation flow, which means there's a lot of links. So compared to the volume of links you're getting, only a small percentage of them are trustworthy. Now, if you flip it on its head, let's say you have a high trust flow. Let's say you have, this says 30, for example, but then your citation flow says 5. Now, this might look good in the beginning. You're like, oh, I only have like a citation flow of 5, but a huge trustworthy score, right? Well, that still looks bad because what you're telling Google is you have all these, you have all this trustworthiness, but not enough volume of links, and that might actually affect you. We don't want too little of a citation flow. We don't want too high. We want just the right ratio, which is usually as close as possible to a 1-on-1 ratio. Okay, so 15-to-17 ratio is pretty good. That's usually the quickest way to just overall get a good idea of the backlink profile on a website. If you have a local business, though, you would check the directories, right? Also known as citations. And the way to do that, of course, is you want to make sure they have an accurate business name, address, phone number, website. This is if you had a local business, they are citation audit services. You can hire people to do this. There are services like Bright Locals Audits and a few other services you can go on that you pay a fee, and they come back with a report of all the directories that your business is listed on if you're a local service, right? This only applies, remember, this part at least applies only if you're a local service business. You want to make sure the business name, address, phone number, and the website URL that you're listing on every single directory is the exact same way, or not even just as close as possible. Ideally, the exact same way, right? Or the way you spell it, the way the number is, organized, it needs to look the same, right? Unless the directory just won't let you put the exact same format on the phone number or whatever, well, that's different. But in general, if you have if you're listed on 100 directories, it better come back with the exact same business name, phone number, address, and URL. If there's inconsistency, it starts to look like you're a spammy company, you're not legitimate. Google's rankings will be affected to your site. This is for my local businesses out there. Then after that, we check the analytics, okay? Analytics is the next thing we check. So what are we checking for on the analytics? Because for this video, I'm only using 1 or 2 websites mainly that we're just working on or that we just started on instead of other clients, because these clients are perfect for an audit style video. So let me go ahead and see. What I like to check for on the analytics is traffic irregularities. Okay, if there's any irregularities, you want to watch out for that. What does that mean? I'll go to the acquisition usually. Look at traffic acquisition. Let's do the last 90 days. Let's do last 12 months. Okay, let's do that. Last 90 days is also good. Actually, let's do the last 90 days for now. And we're going to do it by the month so we get a proper graph. Okay, perfect. So what am I looking for here? So we can see that directly somebody has typed their business this many times. Organic over on Google, their site has been found this many times. Referral from other websites, they've gotten this much, and so on. What I'm looking for is any big irregularities, and we've seen that sometimes their direct traffic is insane, like the ratio to everything else. So they might get 10,000 visitors coming to them directly, but their organic search is like, let's say at 100. It doesn't make any sense. That's an irregularity unless they're somehow a famous brand or their name is just super famous. If they're not, if they're just your average Joe, there needs to be an explanation as to why that's happening. How are people finding you directly? Usually, we found in some cases when that happens, is usually a spammy bot traffic, and it's going to make your site look bad. You want to go ahead and fix that. So we're looking for irregularities like that. Another kind of irregularity we're looking for, let's look at the landing pages. Okay, so these are the landing pages. Now, what I like to check for is the bounce rate. So we'll go to the metrics right here, add metric, bounce rate. Old Google Analytics used to show the bounce rate on their own. Now you have to add it. So now the bounce rate is showing here. Because this client we're barely starting with, you'll notice, nothing is really set up properly. But on this new GA4, on their old Google Analytics, everything was set up properly, if I remember. Here, you'll go ahead and see bounce rates. So for the homepage, bounce rate is 43%. contact us at pages 53. So that just means people landing on the website on that page and quickly bouncing off instead of going from that page to another page and so on. We don't want high bounce rate. We don't want a page like this, for example, like 100%. That's bad. We actually want to keep it below 70%. But sometimes you're going to get 100% on pages that are not that important. Then okay. A blog page is going to probably have, or maybe not a blog page, but there's usually just like one pagers that there's no reason for the person to be there. But on your, especially on your important pages, make sure the bounce rate is low. Overall, your bounce rate should be below 70%. That's what we're looking for. You know what? Another thing you want to look for, another irregularity you want to check for, we also want to make sure that the majority of their traffic, if they're a US company, is coming from the US, okay? If you see something weird where you are in the US, you are a US company, and there's like 100,000 traffic coming from India or from Pakistan or China, any of these countries, then you definitely want to go ahead and make sure to see what's going on. Why are they getting so much traffic? It's usually going to be bot traffic or something's off. Check for those traffic irregularities. That's your analytics. Then the next one is Search Console. Now your Search Console, the way we're going to do it is we're going to go to Search Console, Google Search Console. Start now. We're going to use the easy way maze for this. Okay, this is how you do a quick audit of a Search Console. We start with the indexing section, like a pages. You want to go ahead and see, are there broken links that are being picked up? Are there things that are not being, there's a no index tag on the pages and they're not being picked up. So for example, are these URLs that we want, but they're not being picked up? So far, I don't see a URL that we want, so I'm going to ignore this. But if there was a URL that we care about and it was being no indexed, Search Console will let us know. If there's duplicate, see, it'll tell you things that Google prefers. Exactly. Look, it's duplicate, currently not indexed. So if we don't really care about them, then it doesn't matter. We don't need them indexed anyways. But if they were pages we cared about, well, we care. Same thing with the broken links. These are broken links that exist, it says. So if we check and they're actually broken links, it needs to be fixed. But if they've already been fixed, we need to validate fix and let Search Console know. Then we'll check other things like the video, right? Okay, there's a video that's not being indexed. So if we care about it again, we'll look into that. And then we'll look at the sitemap, make sure that the sitemap has been submitted. This is an easy one. Most companies forget to even submit their sitemap. So they're not letting Google know to index them properly. After that, let's jump to Core Web Vitals. Okay. If it had enough traffic, it will show you here if there's anything to fix. Anything from the SSL, anything to fix? Nope. I usually like to go ahead and skip over to manual actions. If there's any penalties, it will show up here. You can get a rough overview of how the linking is working here. That's how you audit a Search Console. Look for any major issues or major errors or any penalties. Make sure the sitemap is submitted. Those are the major ones for the Search Console. Once you've done that, you've pretty much audited a website properly. And the main key takeaway here is always start with an audit before starting any campaign. Doesn't matter if there's been any SEO work done on it before. And always fix the errors right after. And that's going to be a separate video on how do you fix the errors from an SEO audit. I'll go ahead and create a different video on how to do that because that's very important. Usually in our agency, the way we do it is we audit the site, and then most of the time we're going to have to redesign the site anyways for a variety of reasons that I'm not going to get into in this video. But when we redesign the website, we also fix all the issues that came with the website when we audit it in the first place. That's the main key. Always start with that and then fix the errors after. And then you can start building up on it and creating pages and optimizing. And like I said, a proper comprehensive audit is basically the thing we talked about. Always start with the design audit, then the on-page, the off-page, any other assets that your site might have. If you're a local business, for example, your Google My Business, and then your analytics, Search Console, and you're pretty much good to go. So that is how you audit a website exactly like an agency.